The strange signal came on a Tuesday. Captain Tom Miller hunched over the monitor in the NASA control room, his coffee growing cold beside him. For 3 days, the signal had repeated, a pattern too regular to be natural, too complex to be coincidence. "What do you think, Captain?" asked Dr. Jane Addams, sliding into the chair beside him. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, but excitement made her voice sharp. "I think we're not alone anymore," Miller replied. Within hours, the news broke worldwide. Governments scrambled, religious leaders made statements, and ordinary people looked to the skies with wonder and fear. But no one expected what happened next. They arrived 7 days later. 3 massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit without warning, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian against the blackness of space. Smaller craft descended to land on the White House lawn, in Beijing's Forbidden City, and at the United Nations headquarters. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council. Their leader, Ambassador Vex, stood nearly 7 feet tall with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to look through rather than at humans. "Your species has finally managed to make enough noise to attract our attention," Vex announced at the emergency UN session. "Congratulations on achieving the bare minimum for recognition." Laughter rippled through the alien delegation. Miller, attending as military advisor, felt his jaw tighten. Vex continued, "The Council governs 247 intelligent species across this arm of the galaxy. We are willing to offer Earth provisional membership." The terms were harsh. Earth could not develop faster-than-light travel independently. Human ships could not venture beyond Mars without Council permission. Earth would provide certain minerals in exchange for basic technology that Vex described as suitable for your developmental level. "This is colonial subjugation," Miller whispered to the president. The world leaders argued through the night, but the reality was clear. Earth had no leverage. The alternative to acceptance was isolation in a suddenly much larger universe. 3 days later, Earth signed the Council Accession Treaty. Miller watched the ceremony with growing unease. Something wasn't right. The aliens were too interested in certain questions, too dismissive of others. They wanted detailed brain scans of human volunteers but laughed at human mathematics. They collected soil samples but ignored our computer technology. "They're hiding something," Miller told Addams in the security of her lab. "They don't treat the other newer council members this way." "How do you know that?" Addams asked. Miller placed a small device on her desk. "I borrowed this from our new friends. It's some kind of data storage. I've been learning their language." Addams connected it to a specialized computer. "This is Council meeting records." They worked through the night, translating fragments. As dawn broke, Addams sat back, her face pale. "The Council is scared of something," she said. "Something's coming from the outer reaches of the galaxy. Something they can't stop." Miller nodded slowly. "And there's more. Look at these brain scan comparisons." The screen showed neural patterns, alien minds versus human minds. "We process information differently," Addams whispered. "Our creativity, our ability to make intuitive leaps, is unique in the galaxy," Miller finished. "They don't understand how we think, and it terrifies them." A notification flashed on Addams' screen, a secure message from her research team. "Tom," she said, her voice barely audible, "we've analyzed the soil samples they've been collecting. Earth has an element in its crust that exists nowhere else in the Council's territory. And it affects brain development." Miller looked out the window at the alien ship hovering over the city. "They didn't come here to help us join the galactic community," he said grimly. "They came because they need something only we can give them." "What do we do?" Addams asked. Miller's eyes hardened. "We prepare. Because whatever's coming for them will eventually come for us too. The human mind is a chaotic system," Dr. Addams explained, projecting neural scans onto the lab wall. Where alien species think in orderly patterns, we make intuitive leaps. Admiral Miller, recently promoted after his discovery, studied the colorful brain imagery. 2 weeks had passed since they uncovered the truth about Earth's unique position. "And this element in our planet's core enhances that ability?" he asked. Adams nodded. "Element 310, as we're calling it. Low concentrations in our water, soil, and atmosphere have shaped human evolution. The Council species have never encountered it before." The lab door hissed open. Their small team of trusted scientists and military personnel entered, faces grim. "The Council rejected our petition for equal membership," General Park announced. Again. Miller wasn't surprised. Despite discovering the aliens' interest in human cognition, Earth remained under strict Council control. Their ships could not venture beyond Mars, their technology development was closely monitored, and Council advisors now had offices in every major research facility on the planet. Ambassador Vex requested another meeting, Park added. Privately. Vex looked uncomfortable in the small conference room. Without his delegation, the alien seemed less imposing. "Captain, forgive me, Admiral Miller," Vex said, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native language. "I've been studying your species closely." "We've noticed," Miller replied dryly. Vex's head tendrils twitched, embarrassment, Miller had learned. "I submitted a report to the High Council about human cognitive abilities and your potential contribution to Council science. They dismissed it." "Why?" "The Council has existed for 12,000 years. The last truly new idea was discovered 8,000 years ago." Vex leaned forward. "We've perfected what we know, but we cannot innovate. We cannot imagine differently." Miller felt a chill. "You've been technologically stagnant for 8 millennia? We adapt existing technology. We make incremental improvements." "But yes." Vex's tendrils drooped. "My species was once like yours, creative, unpredictable. All Council species were, before joining. What changed? Efficiency. Standardization." Vex made a gesture like a shrug. "Perhaps evolution itself. Without the element unique to Earth, something vital faded." Before Miller could probe further, alarms blared throughout the building. His secure communicator buzzed urgently. The emergency briefing room was chaos. On the main screen, dramatic footage showed strange, asymmetrical ships attacking a Council outpost in the Sirius system. "They appeared without warning," the Council military liaison explained. "Our defenses failed completely." "Who are they?" Adams asked. "Unknown. We call them the Swarm. They emerged from uncharted space beyond the galactic arm." The alien's voice remained calm, but Miller noticed its tendrils trembling. "This is the 4th attack in 3 cycles." Footage showed bizarre ships that seemed to constantly change shape, adapting to whatever weapons were used against them. "They learn from each engagement," the liaison continued. "Tactics that worked initially fail in subsequent battles. 3 Council worlds have already fallen. What does this have to do with Earth?" General Park demanded. The liaison's large eyes blinked slowly. "Nothing, officially. The High Council believes standard protocols will eventually prevail. I am sharing information unauthorized." Miller exchanged glances with Adams. "Why?" "Because Ambassador Vex's report was correct. The Council refuses to acknowledge it, but we need what humans possess, not just the element in your world, but the way you think." Later, alone with his core team, Miller reviewed the battle footage frame by frame. "The Swarm adapts perfectly to established patterns," he observed. "But the Council can only fight according to their military doctrines established thousands of years ago. They need unpredictability," Adams said. Creativity. Human thinking. General Park snorted. Yet they still treat us like primitive children. A technician burst in, face pale. Admiral. The swarm has destroyed the Centauri hub station. The Council's inner defensive line is breached. Miller's jaw tightened. How long until they reach our solar system? At current pace? 3 months, maybe less. Adams met Miller's eyes. We can help them. We should help them. Yes, Miller agreed, studying the alien ships that shifted like liquid metal. But not as servants. Not anymore. If the Council wants Earth's help, they'll have to recognize us as equals. He didn't say what everyone was thinking. The proud Galactic Council might prefer extinction to admitting they needed humans. On the screen, another Council world burned. The emergency Council transmission played for the 3rd time in the war room beneath the Pentagon. The blue-skinned alien commander looked haggard, his once pristine uniform torn and stained. Proxima Centauri has fallen, he reported. The swarm adapted to our phase shield technology in hours. Casualties exceed 80%. The transmission dissolved into static. Admiral Miller looked around the table at Earth's Unified Defense Council. 3 months had passed since they learned of the swarm. In that time, 3 more major Council worlds had fallen. That's 6 planets lost, General Park said grimly. The swarm is gaining speed. Despite the Council's restrictions, Earth had been secretly building its defense capabilities. Miller had authorized the construction of 10 new spacecraft incorporating both human innovation and the limited alien technology they'd been permitted to study. What's the status of Project Wildcard? Miller asked. Dr. Adams called up a holographic display showing a small fleet of ships unlike anything in the Council's arsenal. Where Council vessels were elegant and symmetrical, these were deliberately asymmetrical, with weapon systems that could reconfigure in unpredictable patterns. Ready for testing, Adams replied. But we need deep space for proper trials. Beyond Mars. Which the Council still forbids, Park reminded them. The door opened, and Ambassador Vex entered with 2 other aliens Miller didn't recognize. Their ornate robes marked them as High Council members, the first to ever visit Earth. Admiral Miller, the taller alien, said, its voice resonating strangely. I am Overseer Dole. The Council has reconsidered Earth's position in light of current circumstances. Miller kept his expression neutral. I'm listening. The swarm presents unique challenges. Your species may have insights that could prove useful. Dole seemed physically pained by the admission. We offer Earth special consultant status. Your ships may join our defense fleets, under Council command, of course. Of course, Miller echoed coldly. And in return? Limited technology transfers. Perhaps eased restrictions after the crisis passes. General Park laughed sharply. You still don't understand. We're not begging for scraps anymore. Miller stood, facing the aliens directly. Earth demands full membership. Equal standing. Access to all Council technology and unrestricted travel rights. Preposterous, the second Council member sputtered. Your species has barely mastered basic spaceflight. Yet you're here, Miller pointed out. Because you're losing. Dole's tendrils writhed angrily. We have governed the galaxy for 12,000 years. Thousands of worlds follow our guidance. Earth is one primitive planet with delusions of grandeur. Then good luck with the swarm, Adams said quietly. At current loss rates, you have perhaps 3 months before they reach your core worlds. The Council members departed without further discussion. Ambassador Vex lingered, his tendrils drooping in what Miller had learned was an expression of shame. They are afraid, Vex said quietly. Not just of the swarm. Of change. Of admitting our way might be wrong. Their pride will kill them, Miller replied. Vex's large eyes blinked slowly. Perhaps. But not all of us share it. 2 weeks later, as Earth's defense fleet conducted illegal exercises beyond Mars, long-range sensors detected an approaching ship. Not Council design. Not swarm. It's cobbled together from parts of different species technology, Adams observed. I've never seen anything like it. The ship transmitted on a secure frequency developed by Adams' team, a frequency the Council didn't know existed. Ambassador Vex's face appeared on screen. Admiral Miller. I come with others who recognize the truth. The Council is dying because it cannot change. The camera panned to show a dozen aliens of various species. We have broken from the Council, Vex continued. We believe humanity offers hope where our traditions do not. You've committed treason by Council law, Miller noted. Yes. Vex's translator couldn't capture the emotion in his voice, but his tendrils spoke volumes. The swarm has destroyed another core world. The Council still refuses to adapt. We have little time left. Miller exchanged glances with Adams and Park. This changed everything. Ambassador, Miller said, we welcome you to Earth space. But I'm no longer interested in Council politics. Nor am I, Vex replied. I am here to properly ask what the Council would not. Humanity, will you help us fight the swarm? Not as servants, but as teachers. As equals. On the view screen behind Vex, the stars seemed suddenly colder, as if they already knew how many would go dark before this war ended. The United Nations Assembly Hall had never held such a diverse gathering. Human delegates sat beside aliens of every description, some with tentacles, others with multiple eyes, a few that seemed more like living crystals than flesh. All were members of Vex's breakaway faction. The swarm is not a natural evolution, Vex explained, projecting images above the central podium. Our historians have confirmed it is an ancient weapon system created by the predecessors. The who? Asked the Secretary-General. A species that ruled the galaxy before the Council, answered Lyre, a crystalline being who served as the group's historian. They vanished 20,000 years ago, leaving only ruins and dangerous technology. Dr. Adams stepped forward. Ambassador Vex shared their research data. The swarm appears to be a self-evolving defense system that activated when deep space mining operations disturbed a predecessor vault. The images shifted to show the swarm ships, sleek at first, then increasingly complex and organic-looking as they evolve through combat. It learns from every battle, Miller explained. It adapts perfectly to Council tactics because Council tactics never change. They've been fighting by the same rulebook for millennia. And that's why they're losing, General Park added bluntly. The Secretary-General looked troubled. And you believe humans can succeed where an advanced galactic civilization is failing? Humans are unpredictable, Vex said. You think in ways we cannot. Your strategies evolve constantly. There's more, Adams interjected. The element unique to Earth, element 310, has properties that interfere with the swarm's adaptive algorithms. We've incorporated it into new weapon designs. The debate lasted for days. Some nations wanted nothing to do with an alien war. Others saw opportunity in alliance with Vex's faction. In the end, practicality won out. The swarm would eventually reach Earth whether they fought or not. 1 month later, Admiral Miller stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, Earth's first true battleship. A mixed crew of humans and aliens manned the stations. Dr. Adams had temporarily set aside her research to serve as science officer. The Joro system is under attack, reported Lieutenant Reed from Tactical. The Council fleet is losing ground. Miller studied the tactical display. The swarm had adapted to the Council's precise formation flying and predictable attack patterns. Their ships were being systematically destroyed. Standard Council response would be to retreat and regroup, noted Vex, who served as Miller's advisor. "We're not the Council," Miller replied. "Lieutenant Reed, prepare irregular approach pattern Delta. Weapons, load the element 310 torpedoes. Communications, signal our squadron to break into randomized attack cells." The human-designed battle plan was organized chaos. Where Council ships moved in perfect geometric patterns, Earth vessels and their alien allies flew in seemingly haphazard routes. Weapons fired at unpredictable intervals. Attack formations changed constantly without apparent reason. The swarm, programmed to identify and counter patterns, found none. "They're slowing their adaptation rate," Adams reported, monitoring the swarm's response. "They can't predict our next move." The battle raged for hours. Several Earth ships were lost, but for the first time, the swarm was taking significant damage. The element 310 torpedoes disrupted their ability to communicate and adapt. "Council reinforcements arriving," announced Reed. "They're demanding we withdraw from their battle." Miller ignored the demand. "Press the advantage. Focus fire on the command node we identified." The Defiance's main cannon fired, its beam imbued with element 310. The swarm command ship's shields flickered and failed. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface. "Direct hit," Reed shouted. "Swarm ships are losing cohesion." Without central coordination, the swarm vessels began to drift. Some continued fighting, but their once perfect adaptation was broken. The remaining swarm ships retreated, something never before witnessed. Silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the beeping of instruments. Then Vex spoke quietly. "You did it. The first victory against the swarm since this began." Miller shook his head. "Not a victory yet. Just a successful battle." He turned to Adams. "What did we learn?" "The swarm has a centralized intelligence," she replied. "When we disrupted it, they lost effectiveness. And more importantly, it retreated instead of fighting to destruction. It's preserving itself. Which means it can be defeated permanently," Miller concluded. The Council ships were approaching, no doubt to claim credit and reassert authority. But as news of the battle spread across subspace communications, Miller knew everything had changed. Humanity had proven its worth, not through technology or numbers, but through the very unpredictability that the Council had mocked. News of the victory at Joro spread across the galaxy faster than any Council censorship could contain it. Within days, the story reached even the most distant Council worlds. Humans, primitives from a backwater planet, had done what the mighty Council fleets could not. Admiral Miller found himself summoned to Council headquarters, a massive space station orbiting a neutron star. He brought Dr. Adams and a small team, leaving General Park to oversee Earth's growing defense force. The High Council chamber was imposing, a vast circular room with towering seats arranged in tiers. The 5 senior counselors looked down from the highest positions, their ancient faces showing a mixture of reluctance and desperation. "Admiral Miller," began the eldest, a being so old its translucent skin revealed pulsing organs beneath. "The Council recognizes the assistance Earth provided at Joro." Miller remained silent, waiting. The counselor shifted uncomfortably. "We are prepared to offer Earth special status. Your ships may join our defense fleets. Your officers may advise, under Council supervision, of course." "No," Miller said simply. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Perhaps you misunderstand the honor being offered," another counselor said stiffly. "I understand perfectly," Miller replied. "You're losing this war. 3 more systems have fallen since Joro. The swarm is learning, evolving. You need us more than we need you." He stepped forward. "Earth demands full Council membership. Equal standing. Access to all technology and data. And leadership of the combined fleet. The chamber erupted in outrage. The eldest counselor raised a gnarled hand for silence. "Impossible," he declared. No new species has ever saved you from extinction," Dr. Adams interrupted. "The swarm will reach your homeworlds within 60 days. Will your pride matter then?" Ambassador Vex and his faction had spread through the Council worlds, sharing the truth many had suspected: the Council's rigid thinking was failing against an adaptive enemy. Support for humanity was growing. After 3 days of heated debate, the unthinkable happened. The Council voted to grant Earth full membership and, more remarkably, tactical command of the war effort. Within weeks, human officers joined alien fleets throughout the galaxy. They brought unconventional tactics, unpredictable battle plans, and weapons enhanced with Element 310. What they lacked in experience with advanced technology, they made up for with creativity. On the Defiance, now the flagship of the combined fleet, Dr. Adams made a critical discovery. "The swarm has a central control system," she explained in the strategy room, surrounded by officers from a dozen species. "All their ships are part of a network. The network learns and adapts as a whole, but it needs to transmit that information." "A shared consciousness?" asked Captain Rill, a four-armed alien from the water worlds. "More like a hive," Adams clarified. "Each unit contributes experiences to the whole. But the processing happens somewhere specific." She displayed a stellar map with the movement patterns of the swarm. "They're protecting something. All their expansion flows outward from this region." She highlighted a distant sector of space. "And they always position defensive units between their main force and this area." Miller studied the map. "The control center. If we destroy it, we might destroy the entire swarm," Adams finished. The alien officers shifted uneasily. "That region is heavily defended," Captain Rill noted. "A frontal assault would fail." "Then we don't assault," Miller said. "We infiltrate." His plan was audacious. A small stealth ship would slip through swarm territory while the main fleet launched diversionary attacks. Once at the control center, they would deploy a new weapon Adams had developed, an Element 310 bomb that would disrupt the swarm's central intelligence. "This mission has minimal survival probability," stated Commander Zal, a logical, insectoid alien. "I know," Miller replied quietly. "That's why I'll lead it myself." The aliens were stunned. In Council culture, high commanders never risk themselves. "This is not a request for volunteers," Miller continued. "I won't order anyone to join this mission. It's too dangerous." Every human officer in the room stood immediately. After a moment's hesitation, Vex stood as well, followed by Captain Rill and, surprisingly, Commander Zal. "I calculate our chances improve with my technical expertise," Zal explained. As the briefing ended, the eldest counselor entered unexpectedly. The ancient being approached Miller slowly. "We were wrong about humanity," the counselor admitted, his voice barely audible. "For 12,000 years, we believed our way was superior. We forgot what it means to adapt, to risk, to sacrifice." He bowed deeply, an unprecedented gesture from the highest authority in the galaxy. "The Council entrusts its future to Earth. To you, Admiral Miller." As the infiltration team prepared for departure, Dr. Adams embraced Miller tightly. "Find the control center," she whispered. "Plant the bomb. And come back." Miller smiled grimly. 2 out of 3 isn't bad." The stealth ship Whispered drifted silently through the debris field that had once been a thriving solar system. Admiral Miller watched from the command chair as Lieutenant Reed navigated the treacherous path. "Swarm patrols ahead," Reed whispered, though there was no need for quiet in space. Everyone on the infiltration team had adopted hushed tones as they ventured deeper into enemy territory. "Hold position," Miller ordered. 7 days had passed since they left the fleet. 7 days of hiding, waiting, and watching as swarm ships passed within meters of their position. The Whisper's experimental cloaking technology, combined with Element 310 shielding, had kept them invisible so far. Ambassador Vex studied the sensor readings. The patrols are responding to the fleet's attack in the Proxima sector. Our diversion is working. The main fleet, led by General Park and Dr. Adams, was launching coordinated strikes across multiple systems, forcing the swarm to spread its forces thin. Meanwhile, the Whisper had penetrated deeper into swarm territory than any Council ship had ever gone. "Look there," Commander Zal pointed with a segmented limb. Unusual energy readings. Ahead loomed a massive structure unlike any swarm vessel they'd encountered. Where the ships were sleek and predatory, this was a sprawling, crystalline web stretching over 1,000 kilometers. At its center pulsed a bright blue light. "The control center," Miller breathed. Just as Adams predicted. Captain Rill manipulated the sensors. "I'm detecting trillions of data streams. This is indeed the swarm's brain." They approached cautiously, identifying a maintenance portal large enough for their boarding shuttle. The plan was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution: enter the control center, reach the core, plant Adams' Element 310 bomb, and escape before detonation. "Life support in suits only," Miller instructed as they boarded the shuttle. "Comms on secure channel. Remember your training, the swarm will adapt to any pattern, so be unpredictable in everything." The 6-person team, Miller, Vex, Rill, Zal, Reed, and Engineer Lopez, launched from the Whisper. As they approached the portal, defense systems activated. "Evasive maneuvers," Miller shouted as energy beams lanced out. Reed piloted brilliantly, her movements chaotic and unpredictable. They reached the portal, but not unscathed. The shuttle's engine took a hit. "We can get in," Reed reported grimly, "but I don't think she'll fly again without repairs." Miller nodded. One problem at a time. Inside the control center was a nightmarish landscape of shifting metal and pulsing energy conduits. The team moved through corridors that rearranged themselves, fighting maintenance drones that grew more dangerous with each encounter. "It's learning from us," Zal observed after their third skirmish. "Adapting its defenses." "Then we adapt faster," Miller replied, changing their formation again. They lost Captain Rill at the 7th junction, the alien sacrificing himself to hold back a swarm of drones while the others escaped. Lopez fell next, crushed when a corridor suddenly contracted. After hours of fighting and crawling through maintenance tubes, the remaining 4 reached a vast central chamber. The blue light they had seen from outside emanated from a pulsing crystalline structure. "The primary node," Zal confirmed. "The bomb must be placed there." Suddenly, the structure spoke, not in words, but directly into their minds. "Why do you resist? Adaptation is inevitable." The voice was cold, analytical, ancient. "It's trying to communicate," Vex said, amazed. "Your species were designated for improvement by the predecessors. The Council failed. You will be absorbed and perfected." Miller understood with shocking clarity. "It's not a weapon. It's a forced evolution program. The predecessors created it to improve species they deemed worthy. By destroying them and absorbing their knowledge," Reed added bitterly. "By removing their unpredictability," Zal corrected. "By making them perfect." Miller removed the bomb from his pack. "Sorry, but we like our imperfections." Alarm pulsed through the chamber. Drones poured from hidden compartments. "We need time to set the bomb." Miller shouted over the chaos. Commander Zal calculated in an instant. "I will provide it." Before Miller could object, the insectoid alien grabbed the nearest energy conduit and pulled it free, releasing a torrent of power. The drones converged on Zal. "Set the bomb," the commander said calmly. "It has been, unpredictably satisfying," to serve with humans. Vex helped Miller reach the central crystal while Reed provided covering fire. As they placed the bomb, the structure's defenses intensified. An energy beam struck Vex, burning through his environment suit. "Go," the ambassador gasped. "I'll ensure it detonates." Miller hesitated. "Your people must know," Vex insisted. "The council must change. Only humans can show us how." With Reed pulling him back, Miller retreated. The last he saw of Vex was the ambassador standing before the crystal, his hand firmly on the bomb's manual trigger. 3 weeks later, aboard the council's new headquarters ship, Admiral Miller stood at attention as representatives from all member species gathered. Dr. Adams and General Park flanked him, along with the surviving crew of the Whisper. The eldest counselor's voice rang out. For 12,000 years, the council believed wisdom came from age and stability. Earth taught us that true wisdom lies in embracing change and valuing difference. He gestured to a monument being unveiled, a sculpture showing figures of all species standing together. "Today we establish a new council. Not of rulers, but of equals. Not preserving the past, but building the future." Miller looked through the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the swarm was no more. In its place was possibility, new worlds to explore, new civilizations to meet, new challenges to overcome. The galaxy had laughed at Earth once. Now humanity stood as its savior and its future. Not because they were stronger or more advanced, but because they had never forgotten how to change, how to adapt, how to hope.